Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news. We advise you on what you can do about it. Today, we are going to dissect the political landscape. And for this very important conversation, we have two very special ladies with us, well qualified to weigh in on the issues we're going to be discussing today. Let me introduce our guests. The first is a returning guest, Dr. Nadia B. Ahmad. She is an educator, author, and mass movement mobilizer with a wealth of expertise in energy, environmental, and sustained development issues. In 2021, she became the first hijab-wearing Muslim woman to teach at Yale University with the rank of professor. She was a visiting associate professor at Yale Law School. She is also an associate professor at Barry University School of Law. Her path-breaking research on climate cages examines the intersection of climate policy and incarceration, arguing policy responses to the climate crisis lead to arrest, detention, imprisonment, land displacement, job loss, murder, mayhem, general loss of life, and destruction in health, biodiversity, and economic conditions instead of solutions. In 2023, Professor Ahmed was part of a worldwide coalition awarded the United Nations Human Rights Prize for advocacy and the right to a healthy environment, resulting from Resolution 48/13. Promoted by the American Bar Association section of Civil Rights and Social Justice. A frequent media commentator and three-time recipient of the Barbara Fry Award from the Florida Capitol Press Corps, Professor Ahmed has been featured in numerous outlets, including CBS News, ABC News, PBS, CNN, The Washington Post, Time, The Hill, Politico, The Nation, Inside Climate News, Axios, Common Dreams, TRT World, Mondoweiss, Daily Kos, and The Middle East Eye. She's a political strategist and elected DNC member. And this is very important for today's conversation. She's co-chair of the DNC Interfaith Council, co-founder of the Muslim Delegates and Allies Coalition, and co-founder of Ceasefire 2024. Our second guest is a first-time guest, Macy Winograd. Macy volunteers as the coordinator of Code Pink Congress. And for those of you who have been following the news, you are aware of the fact that there has been a lot of activity on Capitol Hill the past few months as a result of this this tragic genocide that has been unfolding before the eyes of the world. She's also a co-producer of Code Pink Radio, a longtime anti-war activist. Macy also volunteers as co-chair of the Peace in Ukraine Coalition. advocating for a ceasefire and diplomatic resolution to the Russia-Ukraine war. In 2010, Macy mobilized 41% of the vote in her primary congressional peace challenge to then incumbent Jane Harman. In 2020, Macy served as a California Democratic National Convention delegate to Bernie Sanders, mobilizing 500 other DNC delegates to challenge the influence of neoconservatives on foreign policy. During her work on the Bernie campaign, Macy organized polling locations on almost every college campus in Los Angeles County and Orange County. Macy also co-founded the Progressive Caucus of the California Democratic Party to demand the funding of human needs, not endless war. Macy's activism began in high school when she marched against the Vietnam War and later joined the defense team of beloved Pentagon Papers whistleblower Daniel Ellsberg. A retired English and government teacher, Macy blogs about militarism and foreign policy at Common Dreams, Counterpunch, Salon, LA Progressive, and Responsible Statescraft. Together with Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin, Macy has co-authored NATO is a Warfare Alliance, not a Global Force for Peace, and Meet the Senate Nuke Caucus, Busting the Budget and Making the World Less Safe. On joining with Code Pink, Macy says, quote, "I am honored to work with such creative and committed activists and look forward to mobilizing co-sponsors and congressional votes for peace legislation." Now, with that as an introduction of our guests, we want to begin the conversation, and I am very, 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 very pleased and honored to have both of you with me today. Peace be unto you both, and welcome to the platform.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you and to be with Professor Ahmad, Nadia, my friend. Thank you, El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan.
Okay, let's begin with Biden and Trump and this just concluded Republican convention in the lead up to the Democrat convention next month. What are your thoughts on what most of America and no doubt many parts of the world just witnessed with the convention that just ended?
Well, right before we came online, the news broke that President Biden will no longer be seeking re-election in 2024. So we can really only talk about Trump as a presidential candidate right now, like everything as it is happening. And so I really want to thank Macy for really having the vision to see that that there can be a campaign for step aside Biden and really fighting for it and just seeing it come to fruition is I really can't hide the smile in that sense. But at the same time, we are in a moment of incredible genocide that is happening. We are seeing protests, crackdowns on protesters in Bangladesh right now. Over 100 have been killed, and it's really been the failure of this government's leadership on the world stage that has just led to these massive human rights violations.
Yes, and I want to echo what Nadia said, that it is testament to the failure of this current administration on the foreign policy front. While President Biden and his team may have pushed for some progressive economic legislation domestically, on the foreign policy front, it's genocide we're witnessing, and it's a drive toward World War III with Russia. So it's imperative that regardless of who replaces Biden as the nominee for the Democratic Party, it's imperative that as we face a possible Trump victory, that the peace movement, the anti-war movement, issue a strong call to end this madness on the world stage, because we're talking about very high stakes. It's genocide, as Nadia mentioned, in Gaza, and all of that can easily be replicated elsewhere, as we know. If we tolerate this, we reelect somebody, we're not going to do that now, who has been arming this genocide. That sends a message to the world that that is acceptable, and it is not.
Well, Nadia, this is news to me, and it's good news. I mean, for months, our position has been hashtag no Biden, no Trump. And now that Biden has stepped out of the way, he's no longer in the running. Thank God, we can focus on doing as much as we possibly can to prevent Trump from becoming president again. What are your thoughts on the convention that just took place?
So I think the best way to describe it would be Hulkamania, from the perspective that you really had people on the stage at the RNC that you would not have had before. And also, I think seeing Trump select J.D. Vance as his vice presidential candidate also shows you the direction that he's moving in. So not only were some Republican elites a little bit concerned about the selection of J.D. Vance over Marco Rubio, who was a favored by Wall Street, because J.D. Vance has really built a brand off of this idea of hillbilly elegy. And so this is kind of signaling where Trump administration would be going towards. What we, I think, are also seeing as well is that after the RNC, it was a lot of drama that was brought forward. And I think what it also did is it put on full display how awful the Trump administration was, and how much more organizing needs to be done, both among the progressive left and the establishment Democrats, and to see if there is a way that the Democratic Party could have victory in 2024. And the reason why President Biden has stepped aside is because it wasn't conceivable for him to continue as the nominee, and each second, each minute that he remained in the race was less likely that there would be any viability for the Democratic Party. We also are seeing as well that there are these parallel movements that are happening. And I think that there is a really strong student voices that have emerged as a part of this as a part of this broader organizing that has happened. And that has led way for new voices. And I think, and that's really the key for systems change.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and if I might add to that, I found the Republican convention quite a show in disguise. You know, we hear the voice of the head of the Teamsters Union, Sean O'Brien, talking about corporate greed and the imperative to support the organizing efforts of workers at Amazon and Starbucks and elsewhere. And you would think that he was talking to a convention of the workers of the world. Instead, he was showcased at the Republican convention, and some people found this very disturbing because it in many ways validated the Republican Party, which is not the party of workers, but maybe the party of those who think it is the party of the white working class. So it was really head spinning to listen to this. But I do think that Trump's appeal has some resonance with those who might have been attracted to the Democratic Party in the past. And by this, I mean there is some intersection between what he is saying about protectionism for workers and building the American working class, the US working class, and making sure that jobs stay home. And there is some similarity to that message to what Bernie was saying, really, about building a solid workforce in the United States and not exporting all of these jobs to other countries. And Trump also talked about settling, or I don't know if he was talked about it at the convention, but during the debate with Biden, he talked about resolving this war between Ukraine and Russia and supporting, perhaps less power for NATO. These are issues that do have resonance with those of us in the peace movement, but by and large, we see that Trump is a disaster. He has emerged from a cabal of very right-wing Republicans who continually scapegoat immigrants, undocumented workers. It's really a very hateful campaign. That's the meme that you hear constantly, this scapegoating, and it's repeated by Elon Musk, who's one of his cheerleaders, the owner of Twitter now, huge social media platform. So we have our work cut out for us as grassroots Democrats. I'm not speaking as Code Pink now. Code Pink is nonpartisan, but I am involved with Progressive Democrats of America. And as you mentioned, I was a delegate along with Nadia to the 2020 DNC nominating convention for the presidency, a delegate for Bernie Sanders. So I am very aware and mindful of where we need to go, both as a peace movement and as the base of the Democratic Party.
You know, that union leader who spoke at the convention, for me, his speech was the most impressive speech of that convention. And, you know, it was clearly he was the first from what I understand, in the Republican convention history, he was the first to speak from that organization at the Republican National Convention. Again, his speech was the most impressive one, and what it did for me is it reminded me of the fact that, you know, within this large swath, although it is numerically a minority within the you know, the American context, still it's a sizable swath of people that have been following Trump almost religiously. They've been following him and at times hanging on to his every word and whim. I mean, many of these people are people that are just hurting. They're hurting, and their pain is being exploited by, you know, persons within that you know, that party like Trump. And Trump, for me, he is he's a very dangerous man because, you know, he's like a cult figure. He's like a cult figure, and he's got a lot of people just blindly following him. Many of them not malicious-hearted folk, just people that are hurting and who see the establishment as it is, and the status quo as having been a major source of their pain. And they're just, you know, when you're hurting and you're blindly lashing out, it's easy for someone like a Donald Trump, who I believe is going to be studied, if you know, for years and years and years to come. He as an individual and his political stock is going to be a source of study for many, many, many years to come. But we're in a very dangerous moment, and I'm hoping that with Biden finally stepping down, you know, making this decision that should have been made weeks ago, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, there is a real opportunity for a change and for this dangerous individual to be blunted from being able to take office again. I'm still trying to get over the fact that you made this, you brought this to our attention, Nadia. Like I said, for months I've been saying no Biden, no Trump. Now Biden is out of the way, and hopefully we can we can save this country from itself before it's too late. Have either one of you, I'm just wondering, have either one of you had an opportunity to examine this Project 2025? Either one of you?
Well, it is 1,000. It's almost 1,000 pages, or like 900 pages. So I haven't read every page, but I've certainly read a summary. And the gist of it is to defund the government, except for the military and the border patrol, that to do away with many of the regulations that we have that, and as Nadia can speak to, that govern the environment, that regulate pollution. They want an open season for capitalists to exploit us. And Trump's other mantra, besides seize the border at the Republican convention, was drill, baby, drill. Here we are in the midst of a climate crisis. It's 144 degrees in Dubai. And it's as though this ascendant movement, if you call it a movement, Trumpian movement, is completely dismissive of the climate crisis. That's existential. Nadia, what do you think?
I think that, especially with Trump, I think part of it is, I think some of the issues behind Project 2025 is some bit of extreme fear mongering. Also, like I don't see. It's not that I don't see Trump really pushing deregulation on all fronts. He's basically like eroded the Supreme Court. My daughter, who's now 10 years old, when she's maybe my age, there may be a good Supreme Court at that point where they could have like good laws and rules in the US, if at all. And so he's already gutted so many things that it's just, how are we going to recover from them, even if there is another, even if he's not reelected? So I think that that's another issue that we need to see, is how weak our institutions are to begin with, to allow for something like Project 2025 to begin. But also, I think we need to look at what Project 2023 and Project 2024 have brought forward in Gaza. Like, to just see, it's just like a complete leveling. Just like, hundreds of thousands of people who have died, and they're worried about what's going to happen to the government in the U.S., where it's just like an extermination of a population, like the human population, like no dignity, no rights. It's like we're arguing over the human rights of just like slaughtering people. Like where's the law in that? And I think that's an important question that we also need to ask, because it's not just that Trump is this cult figure. Like, there's this economic problems that are happening in the U.S. People don't have money to go to the grocery store. They have to decide between if they want to put food on the table or if they want to pay their utility bills. So there's definitely crisis that is happening with that respect. And so with Project 2025, it may actually get worse. And so that's where I think that we should be looking at it, is like, is there the fear of what may happen in the future, or is there the fear of what's already happening continuing to happen further?
Okay, we're going to have to take a station break. On the other side, Brother Sadiq, on the other side of the station break, as soon as it ends, the commercial ends, I'll play that video, that first video, that we will use to segue into another very important question I want to ask these two ladies on the other side.
Contact Nadia Livestock and Poultry for all your sadaqah, akika and kurbani requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goat and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute on your behalf. But that's not all. Introducing Meat Masters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Nadia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are Sanha approved. Telephone 011-857-1774. Call now.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced, with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
You South African, of course. You anxious about the future. We've got you covered. Build on your wealth portfolio with Redry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange. Visit us at 151 Stephen Dlamini Road, Musgrave, Durban, or call us on 031 202 4700 for more information. Redry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Ah, the kitchen, the heart of the home, where memories are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stacked pancakes early in the morning or for the late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is coming to speak to Congress July 24th on a bipartisan invitation from the leadership of both parties in both chambers of Congress. This invitation is so deeply insulting to every single person in this country, it's really hard to know where to start. Netanyahu's going to pressure Congress for more money, more weapons, to continue to defy international law in support of Israel's genocide, and maybe even to send our sons and daughters to die for Israel in a regional war with Iran. And Congress knows that's what he wants. They want that to happen. They want to give him even more of your taxes to blow up more hospitals and schools in Palestine. But let's also remember the fact that this is happening at a time when almost 2/3 of people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. It's happening at a time when the leading cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. Test scores in American schools are hitting the lowest level in decades. There's an illiteracy crisis in this country, not just among kids, but adults. Cities across America continue to be decimated by globalization and neoliberal free trade. Our infrastructure is among the worst in the developed world. And last year, the US suicide rate hit an all-time high. But what's Congress concerned about? That they haven't given enough of our money to Israel. Congress has already committed over $20 billion to Israel in the last 9 months and covers for their genocide at every single step. But that apparently isn't enough for them. So now they've decided to invite the architect of the genocide to make the highest lawmaking body in this country his captive audience. But that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is that the International Criminal Court may very soon issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, in which case Congress would be harboring an internationally wanted criminal. Congress would be legally obligated to arrest Netanyahu, but the United States itself refuses to sign on to the Rome Statute and refuses to recognize the authority of the ICC. In fact, in 2002, the US passed a law which got the nickname the Hague Invasion Act, where it gave itself the authority to use, quote, all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any US or allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by, on behalf of, or at the request of the International Criminal Court. And when the ICC started going after Netanyahu, members of Congress wrote a letter to the ICC threatening to impose severe sanctions on the court's leaders if they issued an arrest warrant, and that such an action would be interpreted as a threat not only to Israel's sovereignty, but to America's sovereignty. It's been reported that Netanyahu's traveling with a much smaller delegation than usual because if he brings more people on his plane, they'll have to stop to refuel. And if they refuel in any country that's part of the ICC, that government would be obligated to arrest him. So his plan to fly directly to the United States is literally based on the fact that he knows that the United States is the only state he can safely travel in. So just to recap, Congress won't do anything about healthcare. They won't do anything about student debt. They're perfectly happy to ignore the housing crisis that's raging in every city in America. But shielding an internationally wanted war criminal is a hill they're willing to die on. And let's just remember who these people are. They're not workers. They don't do or make anything. Their job is being politicians. And most of them are millionaires. Literally the 1%. 9/10 of them are just mouthpieces for the last lobbyist to take them out to lunch. They're criminals. They're white-collar criminals. They're just as guilty as this war criminal they're inviting to Congress. Hell, half of them are making money off of his genocide. They're parasites that only live to serve themselves. So this isn't just a Palestine issue. It's not just an Arab issue or a Muslim issue. This is an issue for all Americans. Because one of the many things that this genocide in Gaza has shown us is that our so-called representatives abdicated their responsibility a long time ago. They have more loyalty to their criminal friends overseas than they do to their own constituents, to the point where they'd sooner harbor them from facing a trial for genocide than listen to us. Since Congress has decided to protect this criminal, dozens of organizations have declared that they're going to unite at the Congress to attempt to arrest Netanyahu in a massive protest at Capitol Hill in D.C. on July 24th. People are organizing buses from all across the country to go down, so it's probably going to be huge. And even if you can't make it, you should share this video so people know it's happening and maybe someone else will take your place. The last time Netanyahu came to Washington, he received constant standing ovations from Congress, both Democrat and Republican. Now they want to honor him again as he butchers Gaza and stands as the main impediment to a ceasefire to create the illusion that he's some respectable leader. Netanyahu is anything but a respectable leader. He's an international pariah that's trying to overcome his global isolation by visiting Congress. This protest will make it absolutely clear that the politicians who invited him don't represent us, just the elite corporate donors cutting their checks.
Welcome back. We are dissecting the political landscape with two very special guests. What are your thoughts on that piece of video you just saw, Nadia? Are you muted?
I think that actually that should be our immediate ask as a movement. We should say they need to disinvite Netanyahu as well. So, you know, Biden dropped out. Now Netanyahu shouldn't show up as well at the White House. Like, instead of just like thinking about, okay, who should be the next nominee? I think that's something we should be considering as well. But, you know, it's like we really need to push forward our ask. And I think that there should be a clear ask this week that, you know what, that plane should not be leaving from Tel Aviv. That plane should stay there because the people of the United States do not welcome genocide, and we do not want it on our soil.
I agree 100%. And at Code Pink, we have a petition that's online, codepink.org, and you can send letters to your members of Congress in the House and Senate asking them to boycott Netanyahu's address to Congress. But now we really need to step it up and say, don't allow him in this country. We may not be a signatory, a party to the Rome Statute, but this is international law. And this man is, as was pointed out in this video, the architect of genocide. So it's incumbent upon all of us to demand that this invitation be rescinded. I also want to add that Code Pink has been working hard. Our delegation in New York City, where the United Nations is located, has been visiting the UN, writing to the UN leaders, and saying to diplomats from dozens of countries, we need a trade embargo on Israel. Stop the arms flow, stop the oil flow to Israel, and suspend Israel from the General Assembly.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on the International Court of Justice decision?
Well, I think it's long overdue, but I do applaud the decision. Basically, it said that Israel's occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem and all the territories that it occupies, and I consider that Gaza as well, is a violation of international law, and it's apartheid, which is what it is. And the implications of this are that those who fund this apartheid regime, those meaning the United States largely, are guilty as well, and they must stop.
Nadia?
And I would also add in that I think that not only is it good that Biden has stepped aside from re-election, I think he should also step down as president. I don't think he's fit to be running the country based on how he has let this massacre go on. And I think that would be the right action as well. I don't think he's really fit to lead the country right now. And I think that that and not only international law is in peril, but also domestic law in the United States is in grave danger because of the way that the courts have been operating based off of Trump's Supreme Court appointees and all the appointees he put up on the federal bench. And so there's talk about, okay, we need to also defund our participation in the United Nations. We need to defund medical relief as well as humanitarian assistance relief. All of that really is of a concern, because what it basically opens the door for is, even if you stop arming Israel, that you have mass starvation. You have a population that is on the brink of mass starvation. And so are we going to let millions of people potentially die on our watch? Or are we not only going to end the genocide, but also put in place a strong civil society and strong funding sources so that we can really bring people back from the brink of starvation as well?
Yes, and I want to add to that those who might think, well, maybe Trump would be better because we've seen Biden arm this genocide. I would just like to point out that Trump could possibly, if you can imagine it, be worse, because he has said that he's all in for Israel and he would take care of this very quickly. And what does that mean? His choice for vice president, J.D. Vance, he is really a puppet of Peter Thiel, the founder of Palantir, which is a data mining corporation that provides artificial intelligence to Israel to target civilians in Gaza. So that certainly is not the answer. The answer is, now that we have an opportunity with Biden withdrawing from the race, to pressure the Democratic National Convention, the delegates, the whole country, to demand a change in course, to stop this genocide, no more weapons for Israel to target civilians and carry out this mass extermination, and to end this war between Russia and Ukraine before we see something that we don't want to see. And I'm talking about a nuclear war.
Mm-hmm. Given the gravity of the situation in Gaza, and very little attention is being given to what has been unfolding simultaneously on the West Bank. But given the gravity of what's happening in occupied Palestine as a whole, and much of it before the eyes of the world, with the kind of reaction that we've seen, it's an unprecedented reaction globally. Something that here in the United States, I haven't seen, since the Vietnam War, the height of the Vietnam War, when there was a tremendous amount of pushback in the court of public opinion. But given where we are, what do you think the prospects are for something really substantive happening within this upcoming convention, Nadia? What do you think? I mean, you have somewhat of an inside track, and you no doubt you've been hearing things that I'm not privy to. What do you think the prospects are for something really substantive happening for the good?
Well, I mean, I think even before I look at the convention, I look at Congress. I mean, just to kind of underscore what Code Pink has been doing. Code Pink's been there every day.
Yes, they have.
And so I think that's really remarkable, because that's where the real battle is. We need large groups of people from our communities. And I think the encampments were wonderful, but we need to take that same energy to Capitol Hill. And so that's where the decision makers are. And so I really think, even between now and the convention, now in November, there needs to be groups on the Hill lobbying. I met a physician who was from Texas. She's organized She has organized 7 college and graduate students to go to Capitol Hill this week. Her name is Sanya Rahim. And so she's really kind of done this on her own, like decided, okay, to get the funding to take the students to go there to Capitol Hill. And they have meetings scheduled tomorrow. And I think that's really what we need to just take it upon ourselves. And I think the other part of it is that we can't think that that we can't do anything, because I think one of the things that Marcy has taught me is that that it's important for me to have an opinion and also be able to voice it, and how to really kind of get it out there. And a lot of it is as simple as sending an email. So, for example, Alia Khan, who's based in Virginia, she has been organizing these one-click emails that send out these emails to members on Capitol Hill, and also for various campaigns that we do. I mean, some it's like very basic grassroots organizing. We just kind of build it at a broader scale. And we saw what happened with the student encampments. That was fear that this could spread. And so that's why there is severe crackdown as a result of it. And so you also need to see, for example, that if you had 3,500 to 4,000 students at college campuses across the country, including elite institutions, being arrested, for each one protester you had, it also meant you probably had 90 to other 100 students working behind the scenes that did not get arrested. So that's 300 to 400,000 potential college students who are maybe going to go back to school in the fall. And so you're going to have something, and they've really had the summer to kind of relax, but also to plan. And so I would not say that that we're just going to go back to business as usual in the classroom on college campuses. There's going to be a lot of changes that are happening. Even for me personally, I'm not even sure how to teach environmental law in the fall, considering the Supreme Court just put a hammer on major Supreme Court doctrine relating to administrative and environmental law. Like, there's massive changes that are happening in this country, and it really requires ordinary people to stand up in ways that they haven't had to before. As Marcy pointed, Brother Mauri, you pointed out during the Vietnam War, like, if we don't build that grassroots coalition and expand the way that we have in the past, because it always requires just people, everyday people saying that we're not going to take this anymore.
Yes, I think what Nadia is saying is profound, in that we need everyday people to take the initiative. You know, oftentimes we say, well, who's in charge? Who's going to tell me what to do? Well, you are in charge, and you need to tell yourself what to do. And in that sense, you know, it might be going and joining Medea Benjamin and Jody Evans, co-founders of Code Pink, in Washington, D.C. I think they're meeting every day on Capitol Hill in the cafeteria. You can check it out. You know, email Medea, MEDEA, at codepink.org to connect. But also in our home districts, it's the summer, and members of Congress will eventually be coming back to our home districts. So we need to be in their offices. We need to be following them and confronting them and demanding an end to this flow, this endless flow, $20 billion, as we heard in the video so far in the last, 9 months, to Israel for its genocide. And so it really is the time for all of us. We don't need a title. We don't even need an organization, but connect with one and show up.
I'm glad that both of you made note of the importance of citizen involvement, what everyday folk can do to help make a difference. I'm based here in the Washington metropolitan DC area, and I've spent over the past months that these actions have been taking place on Capitol Hill, probably 4 or 5 days I've spent on the Hill, walking the halls with that army of citizen soldiers, lobbying their representatives and really trying to make a difference. It has been amazing for me to witness. And there is no doubt in my mind that consistent presence, that consistent pressure has made a difference. It has made a difference. What was it? Was Code Pink the organization that spearheaded that citizen lobbying effort on the Hill?
Yeah, that's Nadia Benjamin, one of our co-founders, and she meets with a group, I think, of 20 to 30 people at least every day. And people come in, as Nadia said, from far corners. They're organizing their own delegations to join with Code Pink or to fan out themselves. And they are basically following Congress members around Capitol Hill and in their offices, confronting them on support for genocide. And this is very important, right? And then we see this broadcast on Instagram and other social media platforms so that people can see there is resistance. And it's not just, it is very important domestically, but it's also important internationally to show solidarity and to give people hope and the motivation to continue.
I knew this this hour was going to go fast. We just have 15 minutes left, and there's a very important statement that I need to share with our audience, a statement out of South Africa that I need to share with our audience before the broadcast ends. With that being said, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that the two of you feel is very important for the audience, both the viewing audience and the listening audience, to know coming out of this conversation based around the theme, dissecting the political landscape?
Nadia, I defer to you first.
I think the one thing I really wanted people to know is that, for example, right now, we don't know who the president is. We're 28 days away from the Democratic National Committee's convention. And I think we should put forward a list of demands. We've put together a Muslim delegates platform statement. You can go to muslimdelegates.net to see it. But what we really need to have is we need to put forward and make known this is what we want. We need to also be people of higher aspiration versus kind of settling for what's been handed to us. I mean, we've gotten some of the gains that we have had in the political system right now, but we need to think systems-wide change. And how are we going to be part of that change? So I think that's really important for people to take it upon themselves. For example, my friend Salima Gul, she writes different op-eds as well and brings these issues to light. For example, we've seen the squad veering more towards the establishment, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is looking more like Dianne Feinstein. And so we really need to kind of to see what exactly we bring to the table.
Yes, I would agree that we need to be very loud, vigilant in broadcasting our message to regardless of who the Democratic nominee is. And that message is that we want an end to the genocide and we don't want World War III. We need a new foreign policy. Biden's foreign policy team was a disaster from the beginning. Nadia and I saw this coming, and we had issued a statement from hundreds of delegates in opposition to these neoconservatives that have staffed his foreign policy team. Kamala Harris, when now Biden has endorsed her. He has thrown his support to Kamala Harris, the vice president, and she was the attorney general in California. When she was attorney general, I have to say she did not succumb to some of the pressure to go after groups that spoke out in support of Palestine. And, reports are that she's going to be better than Biden on this. I certainly hope so, but we have to make sure that's the case. And we have two possibilities right now. I mean, I think Nadia can speak to this more aptly than I can, but there's the possibility of an online vote before the convention, August 19th, or an open convention. So we don't know, how this is going to unfold, but we do know what we want our message to be, and that is a message of peace.
Now, is there a preference for either one of these options in the mind of either one of you? The online.
I think we're both on the same page that there should be an open convention. That the more people I mean, we've talked about this. I remember 2 weeks ago we were struggling with how do we convince people to really support dropout Biden. So now I think we really need to be convincing people support open convention, because right now the way the rules had, the DNC Rules and Bylaws Committee met on Friday, and they're going forward with their virtual vote, which essentially denies the delegates their opportunity to participate in the convention. Who needs to just go to the DNC, go to Chicago and watch Beyonce perform? I mean, that's great, but we really need to go there and do party business and really work to nominate somebody who we believe will most effectively make the Democratic Party successful in 2024. And that's not possible as it was with Joe Biden. And so we just need to continue that work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to thank both of you for joining me today, and this will not be the last time. We're going to have you back again to continue this conversation. Until then, may Allah Ta'ala bless the rest of your day, and may Allah bless this struggle that we are all engaged in for a better, more healthy America.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mauri, and thank you, Salam Media, and thank you, South Africa, for taking this case to the International Court of Justice. Code Pink loves you.
Yes, indeed. Now, speaking of South Africa, we've got a very important bit of information that we want to share. But let me share this after there's another piece of video that we had for today. I should say that we have for today that we also wanted to share. For some time now, I have been longing to hear the voice of a prominent leader from within the immigrant Muslim community speak out with vigor on what has been happening in Gaza. And just a few days ago, a piece of video came, a couple of days ago, piece of video came to my attention that was an answer to my prayer. Let's see that video. Then on the other side, I'm going to share this very, very important statement coming out of South Africa with our listeners and viewers.
It is high time that we claim the narrative and we shift the conversation. Don't be intimidated by such tactics. Don't fall prey to these types of tactics. Be brave, learn your facts, and push back. You want me to condemn? Yes, wallahi, I will condemn. I will begin by condemning the debacle of the Balfour Declaration where all of this began. The Balfour Declaration and the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Let's begin by condemning World War I. Let's begin by condemning Great Britain handing over a piece of land that it had nothing to do with to a people that have nothing to do with it. Let's begin by condemning that. You want me to condemn? You want me to condemn? Let us begin by condemning the first and the second Nakba, in which 1.5 million people were displaced. You want me to condemn? You want me to condemn genocides and massacres? Let us begin by condemning the massacres that Israel perpetrated against Palestine, beginning with Deir Yassin in 1947, where hundreds of bodies were filled up in the well of Deir Yassin. You want me to condemn? You want me to condemn hostages? Let's begin by condemning 15,000 Palestinians held without trial, without any fair representation in Israeli prisons. Let's begin by condemning them. You want me to condemn? You want me to condemn killing of people? Let us begin by the carpet bombings that Israel constantly does for the last 25 years. And as for, and I'm going to go there today, brothers and sisters, because enough is enough. And if we're all cowered into silence, if we're all too scared to speak the truth, they're going to get away with it. But if every one of us raises our voices, if every one of us is brave enough to push back, well then inshallah ta'ala, we will achieve a level of social credibility. We will push back at the narrative. When too many people speak the truth, that is what is going to break down falsehood. And that's what we need to do. So let's go to the very events you want us to condemn. You want us to condemn October 7th? I have plenty to condemn even on that day. How about we begin by condemning the lies that you perpetrated about what happened on that day? Lies that went all the way from CNN, from BBC, from New York Times, from every single newspaper. Even our president lied straight to us, and he looked at the camera and he said, I saw pictures of 40 decapitated babies. Pure lies, Israeli propaganda. I will condemn, and this is my condemnation. How dare you lie to us? You're supposed to be our president. You're supposed to speak the truth, and you lie to the world. And because of that lie, people were enraged and thousands lost their lives. We all know it was a lie. Even the New York Times had to withdraw and retract the story. You want me to condemn? How about the condemnation of your lies of the mass rapes that you said occurred? Not a single rape has been attested to that day. I will condemn, because you're the ones who created a narrative. You're the ones who falsely construed a narrative that was then used to bomb, to kill, to maim, to rampage. You're the ones who falsely created a narrative. This October 7th did not come out of a vacuum. You want me to condemn? I will condemn 75 years of brutal occupation before October 7th. That's what I'm going to condemn. Enough is enough, brothers and sisters. Enough is enough. And what Gaza has done is that it has shown the world the hypocrisy of those who claim to champion human rights and freedom.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Now, out of South Africa, addressing Palestinian solidarity organizations in Lausanne at the IOC headquarters. The statement reads as follows: distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good afternoon to you all. I bring you warm greetings from South Africa, home of President Nelson Mandela. Yesterday, the 18th of July, 2024, we celebrated the Nelson Mandela International Day, and freedom-loving people from all walks of life, all over the world, rededicated themselves to doing good and upholding the values of justice, human rights, and dignity for all. We also reminded ourselves of the historic position that Madiba took on Palestine. I want to assure you and the people of Gaza and all of occupied Palestine that we shall never abandon them, and our support for the struggle for Palestine is cast in stone, and on the contrary, based on our own experience of apartheid, brutality. We can never turn a blind eye to the unfolding humanitarian crisis and genocide perpetrated by apartheid Israel against innocent civilians. Today, we are gathered here to call on the International Olympic Committee to ban apartheid Israel from the Paris Olympics 2024. This call is not without precedent, as 60 years ago, South Africa was banned from the Tokyo Olympics in 1964, and 8 years later expelled from the Olympic family. Then the motivation for banning the South African team from participating in the Olympics was to demonstrate the unified and international disapproval of South African apartheid and its brutality. In recent times, Belarus, as well as Russia, have been banned from the Olympics, and it is only the worst form of hypocrisy that shelters apartheid Israel from being banned. We call for the immediate banning of the Zionist usurping entity, and we call for a permanent life ban of the 30 athletes who have been confirmed as participating in the genocide in Gaza. They have no place at the Olympics. We call on the national Olympic committees across the world and all countries participating in the Olympics to support our call to ban apartheid Israel from participating in Paris. Apartheid Israel has brutally bombed innocent civilians, destroyed 2/3 of the infrastructure of Gaza. It has bombed hospitals, universities, schools, and even mosques and churches. Apartheid Israel has broken every rule of law. It has ignored countless UN resolutions. It has shown a total disregard for the Geneva Convention and the UN Genocide Convention. The world watches idly as apartheid Israel issues instructions to refugees to vacate and then bombs the places that they have moved to. I want to call on all activists across the world to make our call go viral. Let us pull out all stops to ban apartheid Israel from the Paris Olympic Games. And we reiterate our call to expel the Zionist usurping entity from the Olympic family. We call for an immediate ceasefire and to and to ensure that much needed humanitarian and aid reaches Gaza and all of occupied Palestine. Each day that passes, we witness the humanitarian disaster in Gaza worsening, with more children and innocent civilians dying of hunger, malnutrition, disease, and deprivation. In the remaining days to the start of the Olympics, we call on all sports federations to bring pressure to bear on the leadership of the IOC to ban apartheid Israel from the Olympics. We have the power to bring pressure to bear on the IOC leadership. Let us intensify this campaign. We call on all freedom-loving people of the world to support this campaign. We call on sports bodies, organizations of civil societies, workers, worker formations, churches, mosques, and temples, and all faith-based movements to support our call to ban apartheid Israel from the Paris Olympics. Apartheid is a crime against humanity and has no place at the Olympics. Genocide has no place at the Olympics. We cannot turn a blind eye to the brutal crimes of apartheid Israel. Free Palestine, from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Hashtag ban apartheid Israel now. Thank you. And this comes from the Royal House of Mandela, based in Eastern Cape Province, South Africa. On that note, we close out as we normally do with Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wal Asr. Innal insana lafi kusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqq. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means, in translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.